Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C. that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. I meant to go back to this series last year, but with things being as crazy as they were, I decided to put it off until I had some more time to look at it. And since the review I had planned would have taken too long, I figured why not take a look at it now. So let's continue with the Masters of Horror series with an adaptation of a story from the literary master of horror himself, H.P. Lovecraft, which was done by the man who's adapted the most H.P. Lovecraft stories, the late Stuart Gordon. This is my review of the second episode of the Masters of Horror, Dreams in the Witch House. As I previously mentioned, this episode comes to us from one of the masters that many people might not know, but has left quite an impact on the horror genre, Stuart Gordon. For those of you out there who don't know, Stuart Gordon was a director who was well known for adapting several H.P. Lovecraft stories, such as Reanimator, Castle Freak, and Dagon, just to name a few. This short story was one that was originally going to be adapted into a movie back in the 80s. However, Stuart decided to adapt the short story from Beyond instead, which resulted in becoming one of the most successful horror movies of the 80s. From what I could find about this episode, most people seem to like it, saying that it stayed close to the original short story and that it was one of the more standout episodes from the show, which I do have to agree on, as I thought that this episode definitely has that Lovecraftian feel to it, even though it's not a story that deals with the outer gods that people usually associate with him. The episode follows a young grad student named Walter Gilman, played by Ezra Godden, who moves into a boarding house to work on his final thesis on string theory. However, he begins to have strange dreams about an evil witch and her human-faced rat, who are persuading him to join them to kill his neighbor's baby for her to live forever. Will Walter be able to hold her off and stop her evil plans, or will he be claimed by the witch and be forced to kill babies forever? Similar to the first episode, I only recognize one actor from this episode, and he's the one that has the least screen time. But the one thing I will say that is an improvement over the first episode is the rest of the cast. While none of them I would call world-class actors, at least I cared about them, and they had more personalities than the cast of the first episode. Ezra plays a kind and caring person as Walter, who tries to fend off the witch and succeeds in killing her, but is unfortunately framed for the killing of his neighbor's baby and then killed by her familiar. The other characters are okay and play their roles fine, but only like two of them matter, and the rest of them are just there to fill the respective roles for the episode. One thing that surprised me with this episode was how well the special effects were done, especially how dark these effects could go for something that came out in the 2000s. For the effects, while they haven't aged that well, I do think they are effective for the time period. They feel really Lovecraftian and are creepy from the lights used to show when the witch would appear in both Walter's dreams and the real world, and the rat-faced human is something that I definitely will see in my nightmares. But the one thing I have to give high props to is the writing, for keeping much of the darker tone from the original source. I haven't read the original book, but if it's anything like this, I think I'd love to give it a look. The episode keeps in a lot of dark elements, like having thousands of baby skeletons that the witch has sacrificed over the years, a man committing suicide, and the end of the movie having our hero die from being eaten inside out by the rat familiar. Though that is kind of one thing I don't like about the episode. As much as I love how dark the writing in this episode is, there are two big nitpicks from the writing that do weigh down this episode for me. The first one that I have is when we see the witch force Walter to sign a blood contract, where he loses so much blood that he would be dead upon waking up. He appears in a library where he finds the Necronomicon in front of him. I have two questions to this. Number one, why is the Necronomicon in a random as hell restricted area of a middle-of-nowhere town library? And number two, why doesn't the witch just keep it with her rather than having it in this library, other than it being her way of keeping it safe? It just felt odd to me that she wouldn't keep it with her, and it just leads to an annoying librarian character that doesn't add anything to the story. But the biggest nitpick I have with this episode is that the ending was unnecessarily dark. The episode ends with Walter killing the witch, but her familiar ends up killing his neighbor's baby, and leads to him getting sent to an insane asylum, where he is interrogated and blamed for the baby's death. Normally, that would be a good place to end the episode, but instead, it ends with the familiar killing Walter and escaping back to the house. I feel like having this added part of Walter's death was unnecessary, as we already had Walter going to an insane asylum and staying there due to him being framed for killing the baby. The familiar kills him in a graphic way that doesn't add anything other than to show off some decent gore effects. Other than those nitpicks, I do think that this was a good episode and an improvement over the last one for those looking for another good adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work. The episode is a vast improvement over the first one. The characters are a lot more compelling, the horror in this is very dark and disturbing, and the gore is fantastic. The only thing I don't like about the episode is the ending, and there are some minor nitpicks in the writing, but I can chop that up to the episode being so short. Overall, I give Dreams in the Witch House a 7 out of 10. It's an improvement over the first episode, but there are some writing issues that could have been tweaked upon. Thanks for watching, I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.